help them develop skills that will be useful in their projects, and help them create a sense of community that feels powerful. We have chapters, in both student chapters and professional chapters, but we haven't really done as much with them as we need to do. The chapters, for the most, how many of you are members of chapters or active in chapters? Okay, just a few. But I think we haven't really thought about this in the right way, because on some level, the exercise that Rachel walked us through this morning created little chapters, right? Chapters are just local groups that get together and talk with each other about issues that are important. But in every community in this country, we are facing problems with what is being referred to as uncivil discourse, with political exchanges that are often quite violent in their nature. And Mediators Beyond Borders can play a role in every community in bringing together people so that they can have conversations about difficult and dangerous issues without getting into trouble. These are skills that we have or can learn. But I think we also want to welcome all of the students who are here and really compliment Zara. She's done an amazing job of pulling together the student section and inviting students, and this is our largest student participation ever. Thank you, Zara, for doing that. But this is our future. This is an arena that we have not focused enough attention on. And again, we have to begin to think imaginatively about ways that students can participate in our work without being able necessarily to fly off to different distant locations. But everybody, when I was in high school, I had a pen pal, Annie Godet. She lived in Aix-en-Provence in France, and we wrote about once a week to each other. Well, we now have the capacity on the internet to connect with people around the globe instantaneously. So a group of us, Alan Gross, I'm not sure who all is here. How many of you were with us when we met with the United Nations in New York? Okay, Eric. Great, Charlie. And Michiko, who is here, who used to work for the United Nations. We now have contacts, Deborah and Laura. We now have made personal contact with the Mediation Support Unit, with Kelvin Ong, who runs that unit. And we also met with Johnston Barkat, who is the Assistant Secretary General in charge of the Office of Ombuds and Mediation Services. And in both cases, what they were interested in was, can you give us the names of mediators around the world who might be able to assist in the work of the UN? What kind of request is that? I mean, we're just ready to die and go to heaven, right? So, meanwhile, we have to gather together the names of mediators and contact information from around the world, and gather together information that would help the UN be able to actually use people like this. We don't have it, okay? We have a few members in various countries around the world, but this is a project that it seems to me students can uniquely take on, or that chapters can take on and just say, we'll take this country. And we're gonna research this country, we're gonna find out the names and addresses and professional information of all the mediators in that country. And then we're gonna create a database and have that as something that can go forward. We also, I also want to recognize Dorit, who walked in a moment ago. Where are you, Dorit? Dorit Sippes, who really led the Los Angeles chapter for a period of time. Here's what we did. She and I and a woman whose name is Jamana, Palestinian woman, came together and we...
Iranian woman.
What?
Iranian woman.
Iranian. She's Iranian? I didn't know that. We got together and we showed a movie that had been created by HBO called To Die in Jerusalem, which is about a meeting between the mother of a Palestinian suicide bomber and the mother of the Israeli woman who died in the explosion. And you can imagine how powerful this conversation might be. And yet, the whole thing fell apart. And you could watch this train wreck starting to happen. So we pulled together a group of over 100 people to have a dialogue on this subject. And it was exciting and energizing. And we trained local chapter members in dialogue techniques. So that's one of the things that we might be able to do in chapters. And I'm going to finish up here shortly. We have committees that are actively searching for people to assist. But we haven't really figured out a way of really energizing committees that have kind of gotten off track or lost their leadership, and we have to figure out ways of doing this. We have a couple of other projects. We have Conflict Media, which is a website where we've been dumping information on conflict from around the world. But there's nobody in charge of it, really. There's nobody who's managing the information, organizing it, making it useful, getting it out to people. We have an idea for something called MBB University, which is a distance learning project so that we can connect people from Zimbabwe and Ecuador and Nepal. And finally, this connects to the last of the challenges, it seems to me, that we need to have some imagination and some passion for. And that is what it means, literally, to be beyond borders. And that means Mediators Beyond Borders International. And that is a project that I'm hoping that Lynn will say something about in the next few minutes, so I'm not going to talk about it. But this is a really exciting new area that it seems to me we need to begin to focus on, and that all of you can help with. Because most of the people, raise your hand if you know somebody who lives in some other country. Okay, great. Right here we've got the basis for MBB International, the beginning of that basis. So the last thing that I want to say is I want to call attention to some general things that we need to pay attention to. First, we need to resist the slide into meaningless bureaucracy and administration. This is a temptation for every organization that reaches a certain size. And it comes up automatically. And it's just something that happens for playing it safe. This is what we have Jaffe Management now to do. So we are somewhat free to be a little wild and crazy. Joan and I worked several years ago with Disney Feature Animation, and we asked them to create a vision for the future of their organization. This is after they created a whole bunch of blockbuster movies. And Peter Schneider, who is the president of Disney Feature Animation, said that his vision was for the organization to remain, in quotes, small and naughty. And I kind of have that same vision for us. Secondly, to overcome passivity and reactiveness. We have been too passive. There's a world that is waiting out there, and there are people who are alone, facing their conflicts without assistance. Not only are there those individual people, but the entire planet is facing problems that can no longer be solved using military force or litigation. Greg Walker is here from the Climate Change Project. Tom is here, not here. Mark Kerwin is in the back, also from the Climate Change Project. This team just came back. How many people, raise your hand if you were in Cancun? Great, or if you were in Copenhagen. Okay, so this is a team of people that initially Mark went to Bangkok with, and then we went to Barcelona, and then we went to Copenhagen, and then to Bonn, and then to Cancun. And we are basically advocating a simple thing. If you're going to address climate change issues, or any environmental issues, you've got to have a mechanism for dispute resolution. So we have written treaty language, which we are advocating that the UN insert, that all the parties insert in the Framework Convention for Climate Change. And this is now expanded to include other advocacy projects as well. The final piece that I just want to mention is that we need to dramatically increase the diversity, the capacity, and the satisfaction of every one of our members. In order to become global leaders in conflict resolution, which right now we are. It's shocking that we are, because we really are not ready for this. But we are by default, because there isn't anybody else. Nobody except for us applied to go to Copenhagen and become a non-governmental organization. Nobody is taking on the issue of nuclear proliferation and trying to build mediation into the nuclear proliferation treaties. So we have the possibility of having a deep, profound, and incredibly powerful impact on the ways that we handle these issues. But in order to do this, we have to put our own house in order. And the last thing that we need to do, it seems to me, is we have to have the courage to dissent within the organization when things are not going the way we want them to. And the ability to interact with each other in constructive ways around our disagreements. Because we all feel passionately about this, and we're human beings, and human beings get into conflict. So we have to pay more attention to being kind to one another, and also being honest at the same time. So that's my view of where it is that I'm hoping that we are going to head. And I have one last duty to perform. This is a little button that was created by Ron Sapanchik, and I guess we designed it together, and Ron helped pay for a bunch of these to be created. It's got a little magnetic backing behind it, and several of the members who came to our earlier conferences have received these. It is now my great pleasure to invest Lynn Cole with the office of president and to pin her.
So let me do a couple of things first. Ken set out what goals we all share as members of the board. He and I have talked. I am absolutely in sync and in agreement and in full-blown commitment to everything he's just shared with you. So there's not a whole lot for me to do in terms of talking with you about a lot of the details. I'll mention a few things. First, let me say, Zara, thank you, and to our students who are here, Amanda from Canada, who's our current University Leadership Chapter Committee Chair, thank you for coming. You are our future. You are the people who will sustain our ideals. You are the people who will work through the vision that Ken Cloke has identified and who has spoken so eloquently about every time he talks about MBB. You will be doing that. And hopefully you'll be bringing in your next generation so that this becomes a lifelong commitment, not only for us who are here, and not only for you, but for future generations. It must be that way. We have to have your involvement. The vision that Ken eloquently expresses is we live with it. Those of you who go out on projects, you live it every moment of the day. Those of you who talk in committees, who challenge your intellect, who work through your creativities, you are living his vision every day. The board members, and I want to talk just a moment about this, we are so envisioned with this. We have given, when we started out 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, and we have some original founding members here. I was, Nan is, Alan is, who else is one of our founding members? Thank you, Rachel. Yes, thank you, Joan. Thank you.